This is Media Philosophy, exploring the deeper side of conspiracy theories. One of my favorite. I kind of find conspiracy theories almost like alternate history, like an alternate version of history. And it's something just so engaging about conspiracy theories. It's kind of, I equate it to reading like the lore of your favorite like video game or movie or whatever. Just going like super deep on like the Wikipedia page of like Metal Gear Solid, and then like you just realize that you just spent like 8 hours reading up on a fictional world when there is endless swaths of information that you can be learning right now, but instead you chose to read about fictional history that was like curated to be just really interesting. That's conspiracy theories to me. And I kind of feel bad. I feel like conspiracy theories have kind of changed a little bit. I'm very happy that I got to grow up, I would say, in the golden age of conspiracy theories before it got like too political. I would say that maybe right around the Epstein files is where like conspiracy theories really took like this weird turn, and then I feel like ever since like 2016 and beyond, conspiracy theories just haven't been the same. And I would say introducing yourself to conspiracy theories early in life will only prepare you for later in life where you can't get like infected by all the fear that like the media is like raining down on you. Because one thing I've kind of realized is when you're like 16 to maybe like 25, 26, the outside world really doesn't matter. Forget about the whole like frontal cortex, whatever, prefrontal lobe not being completely developed and whatnot. But, you're just like you don't really care about, the actual world because you don't really own anything, like when you hear like the stock market going up or going down or this or that, like that doesn't really mean anything to you. When you're like 16 to 24, your probably biggest concern is probably like getting laid or something or passing some test, mileage may vary. But you're not really like invested, I would say, in the world, and that's not a disrespectful, and I don't mean that in any sort of like disrespectful, like, kids don't have, like the value of anything. It's just, there's a big difference between, like having, maybe like a career you're working towards versus like having like a family, or maybe like owning a house, or like, having X amount of dollars and invested in like the 401k or something. There's a point where, you start getting like 35 up and you have like actually built a life where like those things matter. And then the media will like, you fear losing that stuff. And I feel like it's the fear that makes people ripe for like the conspiracy theories and whatnot. That's why you see so many people, and it's so sad that I'm seeing people like my age now start to truly go down these dark conspiracy theory like mentality where I guess like they're trying to like they start like buying into all this fear that starts getting peddled. But the thing is, if you start early enough and read and like join like the Reddit conspiracy forum and just like learn like basic conspiracies and whatnot, if you start early enough, just sort of like a vaccine that sort of like builds your immunity, if you read conspiracy theories from a young enough age, you will start, you'll build sort of an immunity to this sort of thinking. Because really, looking at conspiracy theories for like, a decade now, there's like a sort of a pattern that keeps going on, and it goes all the way back probably before like the Red Scare and whatnot, even before that. But there's always just like this pattern of a fear of getting like put into some sort of camp of some like sort of like government overreach, where everyone's it all comes from the whole like fear of the whole new world order. This is something that people have been like fearing since like I said, like before like the 50s and whatnot. The term New World Order I don't think actually got brought into existence until like George W. Bush Sr. gave a speech, I believe. But there's always that fear of like the government working against the little people has always been there. And so like this fear of like, you know, Trump martial law isn't new. You know, is it probably more legitimate now than ever just because Donald Trump is who Donald Trump is? Yes. But the thing is, you know, this is, you know, people have been talking about, you know, the camps, the work camps since Obama and FEMA, and since, you know, before that even. So, you know, if you are just tuning in now, you might be like, wow, this is unprecedented times, this is super scary. But it's like, you know, people have been having these sort of fears forever. But in general, like I said, like because I have been seeped in conspiracy theories for so long, I feel like I'm able to like step back and like not just read the headline, but try to find a little bit more context to things. Because the thing about conspiracy theories, as fun as they are, they're usually cherry-picking ideas, cherry-picking facts, not giving the full picture to really scare people, to, you know, because fear is the most engaging. Fear and hatred are the most engaging emotions, and that's what conspiracy theories want to do. They want to scare you into, you know, engaging with their content. That's what like Alex Jones does, and he is the master of that. That's why he's built such an audience. It's not like he's ever going like trying to solve problems, you know. I've never seen a clip of Alex Jones actually like fixing anything. It's just him pouring like super extreme scenarios down people's throats, and because they're just so extreme and he speaks them with such like passion, it's like, you know, they're terrifying. Same things goes for like a lot of like conspiracy theory posts you might see on like Reddit or whatnot. You know, when you read something about, you know, like the Rothschilds trying to like own the world or whatnot, it seems, you know, really terrifying. And honestly, that is the ultimate conspiracy theory, I would say, is that the Illuminati is real. It's just, you know, the Illuminati is obviously real. Oh, and that's another thing about conspiracy theories, is they are built on some sort of truth. So going like with like the Illuminati and whatnot, all the Illuminati is the 1% of the 1%, and obviously the 1% of the 1% are gonna be in charge and like try to maintain their status quo and whatnot. That's not really too hard of a concept to accept. But what the conspiracy theorists then will do, will inject like either like a little bit of fear into it by saying like their end game is to enslave the entire planet, to turn our children into workhorses. I mean, newsflash, we've already been workhorses. The world has always been workhorses. That's not gonna change. You know, I hope we don't get into some like 1984 level shenanigans. But I mean, for some people, that's just the reality today. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, you can get caught up in like these what ifs. You can like get caught up in you know, the grand idea, but the details usually just don't pan out when it comes to conspiracy theories. When you actually start looking at the sources, when you start actually looking at, you know, people rationalizing things or like pointing out context, things start to make sense. Now, again, all a conspiracy is just like a plan. So that's the cool thing, is like conspiracies happen all the time. History is riddled with conspiracies. But what's really fun is just like to have like the internet community just go off on like wild ideas. And I guess there's so many different categories of conspiracy theories. You can kind of like pick and choose how serious you want to get. You know, if you want to go like aliens walk amongst us, I'm gonna have to do a whole nother video on conspiracy theories. I barely like scratch the surface. I don't feel like I even properly articulated why I like conspiracy theories. I don't even really know what I talked about this video, but we're gonna wrap this video up, you know, and just, you know, you can go silly and go like, you know, more like aliens. You can go like down the occult route. Oh, I love occult conspiracy theories. They're so much fun. We're gonna have to go a whole video about those someday. You know, there's like the finance ideas of conspiracy, the New World Order. Then there's even like rando stuff out there. But definitely, like I said, if you have not like started to submerge yourself in conspiracy theories, get out there, start reading up on some of the basic ones, and then you're gonna realize that the world might not be as scary as it is. Don't let the media companies fill your head with all these fears. Try to build that immunity before you're 50, 60 years old, just consuming the news and believing everything they say. Because if anything, I would say if there's one thing to take away from this video is that conspiracy theories breed a healthy amount of doubt. This is Media Philosophy, exploring the deeper side of entertainment.